Hey everyone, so in this video we are going to take a look at how to improve your writing skills in English. What I am going to do is I'm going to show you how I grade my exam writing. Okay, now there are 6 main things that you need to remember, and here they are. Now, right now, this may look like some crazy code, but it's actually very simple to follow. Okay, so I'm going to go through this and I'm going to give you some questions that you can use to check when you do a piece of writing. Okay, so let's start with O and C. Okay, O and C is organization and cohesion. Now, what cohesion means is sticking two things together. So, for example, when you have glue and you take two things and you stick them together, then glue is the cohesive. So what we're looking at here is how your sentences stick together. So some questions that you can ask. Firstly, have I used paragraphs? Okay, each idea should be put into a separate paragraph. And I also recommend that when you finish your paragraph, you leave one empty line and then you start your next paragraph. The reason for this is that when someone is reading it, it looks easier to read. Okay, a big block of text can be quite stressful to read. Okay, next one. Have I used linking words? Now, depending on the level of your writing, these can be simple words like and, but, because, and so. And even if you're at an advanced level, you still need those words. Okay, remember, English hates short sentences. All right, so it's best to have two ideas with a linking word in the middle. So, for example, my name is Liam and I'm a teacher. Okay, so there is your linking word in the middle. You can also use more advanced linking words at the beginning of a new sentence. Okay, so I might say, my name is Liam and I'm a teacher. In addition, I make videos online. Okay, so here you can see an example of a basic linking word and a slightly more advanced one. If you're starting a new sentence, don't forget your comma. In addition, however, things like that. Okay, and finally, have I used punctuation correctly? Okay, do my questions all have a question mark? Do my new sentences all have a capital letter? Have I put commas in the right place? So this is a good, or these are a good 3 questions to ask yourself when you're looking at this part. Okay, next one. TR, that is target reader. Whenever you do a task, you have to imagine that it's real. Okay, so even if you're in an exam, when I ask you who is going to read your work, don't say the examiner. Okay, because it might be that you have something that looks like this. Here is, oops, a letter from your friend Mark. Okay, and then your task is to write a reply to Mark. So you have to think, okay, who is Mark? He is my friend. Okay, how do I want him to feel when he reads my letter? Okay, a really good example of this was one student that I had who thought he was being funny. And he said, I am not going to accept my friend's invitation to a farm because farms smell. And I said, but how would your friend feel about that? That's his home. Okay, so if you're writing to a friend, you want that friend to feel like you're being friendly. If you're writing an essay, your teacher needs to know what your opinions are and why you think that. Linked with Target Reader is a register. Okay. And this is all about, have I written in the correct style? So that's formal or informal. Of course, if you're writing to your friend Mark, then it's going to be informal. If you're writing an essay for your teacher, it's going to be formal. Okay. Now, of course, this is a big topic, and I do full lessons on this as part of my course. Okay. And also, have I included everything for this task? Okay. So, for example, an essay needs to have an introduction, a main body, which is usually 2 paragraphs, can be 3. So let's put 2 to 3. And the conclusion. Okay, if you write an essay and there is no introduction, your score will go down. If you write an essay and your conclusion is bad, so for example, you don't give your opinion, then your score will go down. Again, writing an essay would usually be a whole lesson. If you're writing an email, you don't want to start a letter to Mark with "Dear Sir" or "Madam," and you don't want to start a letter to a company with "Hi, bro." So think about the language that you're using. This register is all about what language you are choosing. Okay, next one, accuracy. This is all about the mistakes that you make. Okay, there are 2 types of mistakes, what I call slips and what I call say what mistakes. Now, a slip is something that happens because your brain switches off for a moment. Okay, it's things like he have, or in Monday, or misspelling the word beautiful, for example, missing out the A. These are okay if you only do them once. Okay, so if you have a story and you use he has, he goes, he likes, and then one time you say he have, that's not a big problem. But make sure that you check your work, because when you finish writing, if you go back and read it, you will find a lot of these if you've made them. Okay? These only become a problem if there are a lot of them. If you have 10 spelling mistakes, it becomes a problem. A say what mistake is usually when you're translating from your own language. Every language has its own expressions, its own way of speaking. Okay? So a very simple example. When you want to say, I'm really tired in English, you say, I'm knackered. That's the English expression, I'm knackered. But in Spanish, you say, estoy molido, which means I'm minced, like the meat that you have in your lasagna. Okay? If in English you said, I'm minced, no one would understand what you mean. Okay? So make sure that you are careful when translating. Because if the examiner or if the reader says, what? Then you have a big problem. Okay, next one, range. Range is all about your grammar and vocabulary. Okay. And the question for this one is, have I tried to do something more difficult? Okay, you can write an essay and you can just use simple grammar and your accuracy will be very high. But the examiner wants to see that you are trying to do something difficult. So maybe just including one extra piece of vocabulary. Instead of saying the show was very good, you say the show was spectacular. Instead of saying many people attended the show, you can say the show was attended by many people. So you see here, just in a simple way, I've changed the grammar. Very good, spectacular. Many people attended the show. The show was attended by many people because you've changed the grammar. Okay, you don't have to do this in every single sentence. Just 2 or 3 times in your writing is enough to make the examiner want to move your score up. And finally, content. Have I answered the question? And that's all of it. Have you answered everything? Sometimes they will ask you to do 3 things. If you only do 2 things, you will get a bad score here, and also your target reader will feel upset or angry or frustrated. Okay? And have I stuck to the word limits? Some exams give you a number of words and you need to be inside. So 140 to 190. Some exams ask you to write more than a certain amount. Okay, so I believe in the TOEIC, they ask you to write more than a particular number of words. Okay, if you write 5 or 10 less than that, it's not a problem, but you really want to pay attention to the word limit. If you can go through this and check each one, then at the end, you will have a good piece of writing. That's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you'll join me again soon for another one. Take care.